All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Word with Ty Brownlow. I am your host, Ty Brownlow, and remember, no one is worthless, no story is worthless. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I have a very special guest for you. Let me give you a couple of words about my guest. Perspective, travel, conversation, truth. All the way from Texas, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brent Will Taylor. How are you, sir?
Hey there, how are you, Ty? Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you. You are quite interesting. Let me just jump right into it. You have a website, blog, podcast called White Guy Talks Race. Okay. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm going to get right into it. My first question. All right. What were your views of African Americans, people of color before, White Guy Talks Race, and how have those views changed, or have they remained the same?
Sure, that's a great question. So I would back up a little bit before White Guy Talks Race, because White Guy Talks Race is new and it's sort of, the journey's begun. But the turning point for me, I think, is when I moved to New Orleans in the summer of 2010. And, I was raised by two strong women in Texas who taught me there were basically two things you do not do: you do not lie, and you do not treat anyone with disrespect. So even as a little boy, I always knew, you're not supposed to be prejudiced, you don't say bad things. But it was the way I think a lot of people are raised, if you're raised hopefully a right way. And then it was a political thing, it was a social thing, it was an academic thing, it was not a personal thing. And it was the way you were supposed to behave, I guess is what I would say. And when I moved to New Orleans in 2010, a different conversation than today, but we'll just say the spirits settled me down in a neighborhood called Treme, which is, depending on who you talk to, the oldest or the second oldest Black neighborhood in North America. And so when I moved to Treme, my experience with people of color got real personal. And I didn't move to New Orleans to save anybody. I didn't move there because of Katrina. I moved there because the spirits told me to. And I was very lucky. I had a great double shotgun house. It had a big stoop. And I was great that I had some really key neighbors, a woman, Big Red Cotton, a lady named Gladys, some others who kind of beat me upside the head over and over again every time I was too white in terms of my thinking, or clueless. And that's when it started to change, because it was personal. I don't mean I was living the experience of being Black or a person of color, obviously, it's not that. But it was up close and personal. So I knew friends who were succeeding against great odds. I knew friends who were elected officials in New Orleans who had worked in civil rights their whole life. But I also had friends who were murdered. I have a woman who became a good friend. Her daughter could not get mental health care, and she ended up killing her kids. And so it was in my life. And that is what started to change it.
Okay. All right. So, has anything remained the same, as far as, your experiences, from moving from where you were to New Orleans and, being with people? Did anything remain the same? I'm pretty sure you're compassion and this, that, what have you, but how you see certain things, did that stay the same, or did that also change as well?
No, I think what stayed the same is going back to my mom and grand, which is you treat people with respect, you treat people equally, and you treat people fairly. I think what changed is an awareness of the history, and I don't mean the history of the books, I mean the history of the years. And what changed is an awareness. I think my awareness deepened, perhaps, though I am always careful. You do not, again, one of the nights I was whooped upside the head on my stoop was when I said to my friend, Big Red Cotton, okay, I get it. She hit me upside the head and she said, a white person does not ever tell a Black person you get it. And I was like, okay, I understand. Boom, she did it again. But the awareness deepened, I guess, and Yeah, and that's all I have to say. I'm not going to,
No,
I don't need to say more to you because, yeah.
Well, no, it sounds like, Big Red Cotton, and shout outs to Big Red Cotton, whoever you are, man, basically, gave you the perspective, like, hey, I know you think you know, but you really don't know. So, as time goes on, you're really going to see. And the more you see, then one day you'll be able to say, you know what, I understand. No, you don't get it now. There's more to get. So, that's a Big Red Cotton. All right. Now, what is the inspiration behind White Guy Talks Race? Like, tell us about it. Like, tell my viewers, what is, White Guy Talks Race about?
Sure. The inspiration was Ahmaud's murder, or rather, the news of Ahmaud's murder, because months had gone by, sad until before we moved. And I, whenever something like that happens and it's in the news, right? I'm not going to say whenever it happens, because it happens in this country every fucking day. I hope I can say that on your show. But that was headlines, and I have a group of people that I reach out to because they're dear friends, and I was floored by the responses. I had a woman who is very high up in a Fortune 50 company, and she was devastated because she said, and so this is a woman, she's got everything you want in the American dream, right? And has earned it, not inherited it, no favoritism, earned it. And she said to me, my God, now I have to call my son every night for a few weeks to make sure he got home okay. I had a friend who was is in law enforcement in the South, and he's like a brother to me. He started as a mentor, as like a brother. And his comment, which just chilled me, was when I said, what do you have to say? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, no, like, this is horrible. Like, what do you have to say? You're an elder Black man. And he goes, that's what I have to say. Well, he goes, it happens, and then the real piece, and it was, another friend said to me, I'll never forget this. She said, I wish white Americans knew that at least once a week I wake up in tears. And she's not a drama queen. She's not high maintenance. She's not an empath. She certainly isn't. She's a Jersey girl. Okay. And, and that was her comment. And so I called the guy in law enforcement back, and I said, what do I do? Do I give money? Should I join something? Should I run? I used to be in politics. Should I run for office? What do I do? And he said, Brett Will, he said, at first he said, I'll always take your money. If you want to give me a check for somebody, to be clear. But he said, what you do is you tell stories. And so why don't you tell your story and tell the stories of this? And so that's where White Guy Talks About Race came from. And the idea with it is, there are folks that go to seminars, there are folks that read all the books, there are folks that take all the courses, they memorize all the steps, and that's awesome if it works for them. I think there are a lot of people who want to do the right thing, even if they're not sure what the right thing is, but they're not joiners. They're not going to go out there in the world and spend a weekend with something. And so, but they need, if I can share my experience, because that's what White Guy Talks About Race is. I'm not preaching to people. I'm not proselytizing. I am certainly not giving people answers. Right. But if I can share my experience, if I can talk about sitting on the stoop in New Orleans after we've all had way too much to drink and someone slaps you upside the head and says, do not say you get it or understand it. If sharing that helps people figure out their own journey, then that's why I'm doing it.
Okay, all right. And, I had to think about it a little bit, when I first, read everything, and I'm like, White Guy Talks Race, I don't know how to approach this. But then, in talking to my wife was like, well, it's a conversation. So
that's right.
Let's approach it as a conversation. Don't overthink it. It's not, other things or, other people that you cover. It's basically a conversation. So
yeah, you married well. You married well because
yes, I'm very smart. I'm very smart.
Yeah. That's the best some of us can hope for. I'm in the same category. Can you marry up? I think, and it's the conversation is exactly the right word, because I think that's what's missing in a lot of this today. And there's many reasons for that. But I think there should be room for conversation.
Okay. All right. Well, so that drives me to my next question. And basically, that's given America's racist and violence past, its history, and recent events such as Ferguson, Charlottesville. We had, what happened to, many other places as well. But, with the, numerous killings of like George Floyd, you talked about Ahmaud, plus numerous African-American males by police.
And Breonna, and women.
And Breonna, I mean, the list goes on. Sandra,
Yep.
The list goes on and on and on. Too many to count. What are your thoughts as to what, white people can do to better understand the stress and anxiety that African Americans just go through in this country?
So let me, if I may, let me answer that in a couple of ways.
Sure.
So one, going back to what I mentioned about New Orleans, I think we those of us who are white have to take away the notion that we're going to ever understand, because we are not. And I think, and I don't mean this as a disrespect to you at all. I mean this though to kind of orient people to a place of not just action, but effective action, because I think that's what you're getting at. And if you're trying to understand the Black experience, forget it. Period. But I think you do everything you can possibly do. And by that, I mean, there are so many pathways. I don't think there's just one. We're in this very extremist, rigid time in American history where so many people think there is a right way and there is a wrong way. And most people think the right way is their way, right? And so I think, my part of what I see with the conversation about race in America, especially systemic racism, because I think that's the hub of this, is there's a lot of people on the extreme of both sides, and there's a role for that. I used to be in politics, so there's lots of roles. So I think, what are the solutions? Well, there's a policy solution. There is a legal solution. There's a huge political solution. God loves Stacey Abrams, but it's not just top of ballots. When you look at the South and you look at the judges in the South, elected judges, and the lack of representation on the bench, that tells you a lot right there. So you need to change the policies, you need to change the laws, you need to change the people who are making the policies and the laws. I think you need to educate folks. I have some Native American blood going back to my great-grandmother. And when I look back at being in seventh grade in the state of Texas, we had a year of Texas history, and the book was about that thick. By ninth grade, we had a year of world history, and the book was about this thick. But in this thick book of Texas history, we didn't really learn what went on in Texas, And so I think we have to look at how we're educating people. All of that is about changing the mind, and I think that's very important. Where I'm at now, and White Guy on Race, is about more focused on changing hearts. In a way, it's about changing consciousness, because I do believe that it's a fact. The laws are critical. 65 was critical. I'm a gay man. Having the Supreme Court weigh on gay marriage is critical. But we have seen, if you are any kind of other in American society, that means you are not white, you are not Christian, you are not straight. If you are anyone other than that, we have seen that laws only go so far.
True.
So you have to change people's hearts, and that as well. It's both and. And that's what I try to do with White Guy Talks About Race, because you change hearts, and this is why I was so excited to be on your show, Ty. You change hearts through stories. You change hearts through people. You change hearts by taking what for most white Americans is a very flat storyline, which is, when I say flat, it's because I read about Black Americans, whether it's on a flat piece of paper, on a flat computer screen. There is no depth to that. The only depth is Oprah Winfrey, and maybe Michelle. And those are awesome people, but that's not, with all due respect to both of them, where they are today, that's not the story of Black America, or that's not the whole story of Black America. And so you got to tell other stories.
Okay, I like that. I like that perspective. Okay, no problem at all. Now, you are a very interesting person, So let me just ask, what do you want people to know about Brent Will Taylor? Like, this is your time to shine. So, man, if someone wants to know, what is that Brent Will Taylor about? I don't know. Who is Brent Will Taylor?
Well, I would want them to know that it's Brett, not Brent.
Okay.
That's okay. That's okay. That's I got that from my granddaddy, so we got to represent the family here. I guess, God, I mean, boy, do we all have 100,000 ways we could answer that. I think what I would want people to know, because I think it's essential for this point in American history, is that I'm curious. I'm always asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm asking questions because I have been taught by some very wise elders not to believe everything I'm told. And when I talked to some of my friends and colleagues from New Orleans when I was starting White Guy Talks About Race, that was what they kept coming back to. A friend of mine is a law professor in California.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, my God, if you could help students come into law school thinking that maybe, possibly what they were taught in school isn't the full story, maybe, she said, you would make my job so much easier. And so I think that, and that's really at the heart of my storytelling. Believe me, I'm a super opinionated guy. I think I'm right more than I want to acknowledge I think I'm right. But that's not what I'm trying to do here. I think it is to be curious and to question, and to be open to learning.
Okay, all right.
Look at you with your wife. I mean, I think that's what we all need to do more of, is say, I've got this, I heard about this guy, or I heard about, I'm not sure, and it's like, well, have a conversation, You
just see what happens.
Be curious, see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no. I mean, and I think at the root of it all, I feel that's what we need more of. I just feel in today's society, the digital age, it's too much of the phone, it's too much of likes, and I have to be right, and I'm the best thinker, I'm the best this, and I'm the best, me. And when you don't take time out to look at we and us, things sort of get messed up. So
yeah,
I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
This is fun.
No problem. Now, if people want to get in contact with you, how can people get in contact with you?
It is really simple. BrentWillTaylor.today. Not Brent. I don't know where. I should look up and see what Brent Will Taylor is up to, because he might be up to no good at all, or better. But yeah, BrentWillTaylor. And then today, TODAY, and they'll find the info there how to contact.
Okay, all right. So, Mr. Brent Will Taylor. All right. I've come to the last question. The question that my show is known for. So I'm going to ask this question. What is the one word that best describes you, and why? One word?
Yeah, I'd say alive.
Okay. Why alive?
Why? Because I've spent the last 15 years of my life learning what it is to be present, and really learning the meaning of gratitude and compassion. And I think that that is what being alive is all about. It is that we are alive. That is what an amazing thing, right?
Yes.
So why wouldn't he want to be on Ty Brownlow's show? Why not? But I think that's it.
I like the way you think. Why not? Yeah. And but no, I feel that alive, and along with the other words that I talked about, perspective, travel, conversation, and truth, I felt all those words were ingrained in this conversation that we had today. And pretty much those words I feel best describe you,
So man, thank you.
Man, look here. This has been Word with Ty Brownlow. I've been your host, Ty Brownlow. Remember, no one is worthless. No story is worthless. You can follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Word with Ty Brownlow. Catch me on Twitter, Ty Brownlow TV, or just go to my website, tybrownlow.com. Get this wonderful conversation plus other conversations. Brett Will Taylor. Thank you, sir.
Hi, thank you very much.
We're out. Peace.